Hello there, students. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending when you're watching this. We are now going to dive into a little TLDR on the read section of this module. So this is going to be looking at the articles that you'll be reading this week in the Defining Deviance section. So I look forward to kind of covering this all with you. This week's readings cover different approaches, theories, and how to define deviance. So let's start with this. Erikson, who's going to be one of the people you read first, right? Erikson discusses the functions of deviance in his approach, right? And in that approach, he looks at focusing on boundary making and maintenance. Think of boundaries, right? Like when we test how our parents are going to punish us, right? But essentially, he's looking at this, and that communities teach us the boundaries are by showing us what happens when people break the rules, right? The boundaries continually change based on social interactions between social control agents and deviants. And this is kind of looking at this kind of breakdown by this definition of how we establish these various boundaries, right? What is the function of this deviance? Does it cause a disruption? Does it cause social disorder? These boundary makings help us know how to act, how to not act, and the norms are not fixed or static, but are constantly changing through social interactions. So as times change, so do the boundaries that are made. Thus, you start looking at what Erikson's pointing out and how we establish boundaries to create social order, control, and also those who are making them. As we go into a different work here, you're looking at this typology of normative expectations. You're looking at Hecker and Heckert and how they define deviance through their typology on under or over conforming behavior and how the behavior is evaluated by others, right? Because there's this big deal about how it's defined by others and ourselves, right? So we are evaluated by others. They take the integrated approach by considering both normative and reactivist definitions. Now, for those of you not familiar with the terminology, normative means that is, does the behavior conform or not? Reactive is, how do others respond to its behavior? The typology is used based on normative expectation. Does the behavior under or over conform? An underconforming behavior that is negatively evaluated is negative deviance. A person who commits an act that does not meet the expectations and others negatively respond to it. So breaking a norm by not meeting the expectation may include picking your nose, right? Like right now, you're kind of looking at me like, oh, this dude picking his nose, right? So you have this idea of not meeting what you're expecting. So what does that really say about us, right? So wearing jeans to a formal party or doing something much worse, such as the serial killer, the example that we've talked about before. An underconforming behavior that is positively evaluated is deviance admiration, right? This may occur when we glorify a deviant act or look up to people who violate norms. It may be when we laugh and appreciate the class clown. Many other approaches do not consider overconforming as deviance because they focus on those who fail to conform to the rules of society. But the Heckards argue that people can overly conform. You can also think about deviance admiration with the recent rise when it came to the idea of Jeffrey Dahmer in the documentary on Netflix and how, we have the idea of people who really just look to certain people as goals, right? Bonnie and Clyde syndrome is a big idea of this, right? But essentially, that's what we're looking at. That the Heckards do say that people can overly conform. This is go above and beyond what is considered normal behavior, and when this view is viewed as positive, it's harder to say than you think. We get positive deviance, right? You can think of Gandhi or Mother Teresa or other types of these people for easy examples if you'd like. If you overconform, going above and beyond, and it is negatively evaluated, it is called rate busting deviance. And you can think of the person who messes up the curve in a class that curves, right? With the impact it has on the entire class. Because somebody scored too high, that is the class average is broken, thus impacting people who are taking the same exams but are not getting the same averages, right? The Heckards provide an integrated approach that allows for both non-conformity and the overconformity, which is a big thing to think about. So you look at negative deviance, rate busting, deviance admiration, positive deviance, something that you'll be constantly looking at through the remaining of this course. Now on to one of my favorite theorists when it comes to this idea of sociology and deviance, which is Becker. Becker once said, it's not an act that is inherently deviant, but it's how people view the act that makes it and labels it that makes it deviant. A powerful thing to think about. Pause it if you want to think about that. It's not the act, it's the expectation and the evaluation by others. But this is what Becker's labeling theory argues, that deviance is the consequences of the social processes where a negative characteristic becomes a part of the individual's identity. Powerful. Think about that. The individual becomes deviant when he or she or they accept the deviant label given to them by others. This theory is rooted in social reactions to deviance. To Becker, it's not the deviant act, but rather the social response to the act that makes something deviant. It's not crazy to think about. It's not the act. It's how people relate to it. Great, right? The next person we're going to talk about is Hendershot and his view towards deviance. Now, Hendershot's absolutist approach argues that society is based on most people conforming and agreeing to moral law. What is right, what is wrong, these unwritten laws are values of society. They extend throughout history. Quinney's theory extends beyond a relativist approach, such as Becker's, in that it is used to understand the social power of perspective. Quincy focuses on those who hold the power in society as creators and enforcers of rules. It is the dominant or the elite group who maintains the rules to legitimize their actions, defining and enforcing what is considered deviant, keeps the elite in power, and continues to create the social inequalities. So this is what you're looking at right here. Quinney, I was just going into that, right? Social power perspective, social reality of crime, conflict, dominant versus the oppressed group. So what you're looking at here really is the idea of who creates, who controls, who makes, and who enforces these behaviors. So when thinking about these quick TLDR information on the class, I want you to keep reading, keep thinking, and think about these approaches of how we look at deviance, positive, negative, admiration, social control, absolutist, constructionalist, perspectivist. We need to understand for whom, for what, and why, what is, what's the definition, how is this power impacting, why is it deviant, why is it not deviant? These are all thoughts we're going to be thinking about through the remainder of this course, right? So that brings us a close to this readings for this week. Spend time, really read them. The readings are not super simple. Right now you're learning the fundamentals, but we're going to get much deeper, quicker in this class. And I'll look forward to speaking with you at the next lecture. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, always feel free to email myself or my TAs. See you in the next video.